All right. So thank you for joining us today.
Yep,
and
thank you.
We hope to see you here back next time.
We don't see them at all.
Okay, let me restart.
Guys, we suck at...
Welcome to Recapping Romantasy, hot takes on hot literature. Who are we?
We are me, Mara.
I am Emma.
And I am Tabitha. Recapping Romantasy contains mature content from fairy smut to dragon rider torture to monster genitalia. Be sure to check the episode notes and content warnings and links to our social media. So today we are going to do another tropes episode, and we are going to talk about alternative universes. Any comments before we get started?
I'm excited.
Yeah, we like alternative universe.
Mm-hmm.
It's very expansive.
Yeah, I didn't realize how vast it was until reading through all of this. So
yeah,
this
we
is
can
a
do
lesson for
literally
me.
anything with alternative universe.
Yeah.
And the amount of meta that you can get is deep.
Yeah.
But yes, I actually thought when I started writing this out, I'm like, I don't know how long these notes are going to be. And then it spiraled. Okay, so first, to define alternative universe, it is a fan work that changes one or more key elements in the source work. This can be a time, place, plot, backstory, profession, etc. Once again, most of my information will come from fanlore.org, which, as we recall, is the same people that control Archive of Our Own. Just kidding. I read an article for this episode titled Exit Pursued by a Fan, Shakespeare, Fandom, and the Lure of the Alternative Universe by Kativa Mudan Finn and Jessica McCall. We'll have the citation in the episode notes. The authors state that, quote, fanfiction exists in the limit between genre and myth and provides unique opportunities for retellings by the young, the amateur, and the academic alike. Fandom prizes qualities more often derided and refused in traditional academic circles: emotion, self-insertion, and subjectivity. These qualities have been historically derided as feminized, and thus less critical, approaches to text, and prizing these qualities places a premium in fandom on retellings that are grounded in a reader's subjective response to a text. So, what the authors seem to be considering in this article is, where is the edge of fan fiction and where does something become an original work? Essentially, how does literature exist if not to be subjectively interpreted? Using the example of Shakespeare, think about Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. The characters are the same, as is the dialogue, and the plot points are all the same. However, the setting is entirely different.
I don't think I really even considered movies as AUs, but there's so many now that I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Plus, also the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet was my entire personality in the 90s.
Yeah. It was really. I'm trying to think of how to describe when it came out. It was really surprising. Like, everyone was like, "Oh my god, you can do this with Shakespeare."
Yeah, it was considered to be really revolutionary at the time. How AU it was just breaking people's brains.
Yeah, they actually, in high school, they had us watch part of the old Romeo and Juliet, the one from, what was that, the 60s?
Yes.
With her tits. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then they had us watch part of Baz Luhrmann's, and it was like the same scene, but we could see how different the stylization was.
That's cool.
Plus, that 60s version was skating the line of inappropriate.
I was just gonna say, I just saw something maybe a few months ago about those two actors. They were
teenagers.
Yeah, they were teenagers, and they were like, no one asked us if it was okay. They just told us to take our shirts off and shit. No one was like, oh, these kids are technically children. Should we consider any of this? They're like, nah, it's how old they were in the play, so that's fine, I guess.
And then they're showing it to us in the 90s. We're teenagers. Watch these teenagers get naked on screen. Teenagers in high school.
It's okay. We just talked to you about what constitutes as okay stuff in sex ed, but just kidding.
Okay, exactly.
Yeah. Speaking of Baz Luhrmann, I was a Moulin Rouge girl.
Oh, I despised Moulin Rouge when I was young.
This is so upsetting. I love it.
Honestly, I can't even remember my beef with it.
You're just a hater.
I think I'm just a hater.
Are you even into musicals like normally?
Well, see, that's the thing is I'm not really a musical person. There's a couple musicals I really love. Like I I am a Music Man stan. I love The Music Man, the movie with what's his face that I can't remember.
That's so random.
It is. And there's no other musical that I love that much. I just really like The Music Man.
It's like kind of campy, maybe that's why.
I think that's it. Is it has to have a sense of humor for me to enjoy it. Like I cannot stand Cats and what is it? Sondheim. Is he the one that does Phantom of the Opera?
No, that's Weber. What's his name?
Yes, Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yeah.
I can't take stuff that I feel like is real self-serious like that.
Oh, yeah. It is.
I only enjoy it if it's campy.
I have never seen Phantom of the Opera.
You haven't?
Never. I don't even know what it's about.
Wasn't I like singing it to you last time we recorded remotely?
And I'm like totally ignorant. I'm like, I don't know what that is, Emma.
Oh my God.
All the retellings of it, I'm like, nope. Yeah. I've not consumed any of that.
Les Mis is like a lot because it's so long and there's so many characters, and then he does like the everyone talks over everyone thing, but there's like 12 characters, so you're like, I can't understand anything. Phantom of the Opera is like literally always playing in my brain. I like sing it to my cat. I love it so much. I've seen it like
another
3
one
times.
I've never listened to.
I used to watch the movie. But that's basically the only musical by Andrew Lloyd. Well, okay, let me take that back. I do also like I don't like, but I grew up listening to Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat because my family was Catholic. Yeah. It's not serious. It's like very maybe camp's not the right word, but it's a little absurd. They sing like a song in they sing like a country song like about them, the brothers like killing Joseph. It's pretty funny. And then the pharaoh that like raises like Joseph up into like his fame and fortune, whatever. He's like an Elvis character. Don't know what happened to my brain right there, but
he's elvish.
yeah, that's what was happening is I was going to, and I was like, that's not right. That's not right. Yeah, he's Elvis. So like literally in the musicals, like on stage and the song, like he sounds like Elvis, and they like dress him up as like a pharaoh Elvis. It's very funny, but yeah, my mom was like into that. That was like every time we road tripped, that was what we listened to. So yeah.
And like, no hate to anybody who loves those things because like 2 of my favorite musicals are Rocky Horror Picture Show and oh fuck, what's that one, that really shitty one called Repo, the Genetic Opera.
What the fuck is that? I've never even heard of that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not known to be good. I'll say that. It's like I think it came out in like 2008, and it's basically like a goth light opera. I think it's delightful. It was widely panned. Yeah. So anyway,
sorry.
It's a side conversation about musicals.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, which is pretty much the same, just a completely different setting. But now think about the movie 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yeah.
This is a retelling of Taming of the Shrew, also by Shakespeare, but in a modern setting with modern language and modernized plot points. But all of the characters have the same names and the general themes are all the same.
Yeah, retellings have been all the rage in publishing really for like the last 5-10 years, maybe more than that, honestly. But mostly like mythology and fairy tale retellings that have really dominated audiences for a long while. But I honestly think like retellings are like kind of skating the line of like the fanfic AUs because it's so in that vein. So I don't know, that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I it's right, but like at least for movies, it hasn't. I don't like. I'm thinking specifically like rom-coms because 10 Things I Hate About You is a rom-com. Like it hasn't been a thing for quite a while. I can't remember who said it, but like the Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell movie, Anyone But You, is actually based on Much Ado About Nothing. And in like the 90s and like early aughts when 10 Things I Hate About You and also She's the Man and stuff came out, like some of the advertising for that was like, hey, this is a retelling of like this Shakespeare play. But like they did not talk about that at all when they were advertising for the Sydney Sweeney one.
I didn't know that was a retelling.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I didn't know that Clueless was a retelling of Emma until like maybe 10 years
really?
ago.
I knew that going in. I don't know why.
Because they like talked about it a little bit for some of those, because it was like, it was like a way, my personal opinion, it was a way to kind of like bring a little like, oh, this is like high literature, like this is like respectful media.
Clueless
for you
is
to
actually very highbrow.
Yeah, you're not just watching like a shitty rom-com. Like, not to hate on rom, I fucking love rom-coms. But yeah, I didn't want to watch the Sydney Sweeney one until I saw someone say that it was a retelling of Much Ado About Nothing. And I was like, oh, really? I'll give it a try now.
I do want to watch it. Before I was like, I could give less of a shit.
Yeah, I don't need to see her tits again. And then I watched like 10 minutes of it and I was like, God, she sounds so bored whenever she does anything. She like anytime she talks, she just sounds completely bored. She's like, in the first scene of the movie, she really has to go to the bathroom and she's like, can I just get the key to the bathroom? And I was like, dude, you're about to pee your fucking pants. Like, I don't know, have some urgency. Yeah, but like your point with, is it fan fiction or not? I just think that like normal people don't even know fan fiction, like that it exists. So it's not even like a conversation that anyone has outside of like us.
Fair. That's a fair point.
Yeah.
I do think a lot of the retellings, especially the like Greek Roman retellings, are a result of the success of the Song of Achilles.
Yeah.
Which I do think the Song of Achilles is a really good book. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, I think they, as we will get into in another episode, I think a lot of publishers looked at the success of that one and were like, oh, this is something we can do because there's an endless amount of Greek and Roman myths.
Yeah.
So yeah, that all just begs the question of where's the line at which something becomes an alternative universe fan work? Another quote from this article I read is, quote, fandoms and fan fiction take the stories of Shakespeare, much as Shakespeare borrowed from histories, classical mythology, and writers who came before him, and updated those stories for the modern online society, end quote.
I started thinking a lot about like retellings of classic literature in movies, which seems to happen more frequently now as an AU sort of thing. Like I remember like 20 years ago, a movie called Bride and Prejudice came out, which was a Bollywood version of Pride and Prejudice, and it was amazing.
Oh.
Darcy's riding an elephant. His bride is a Hindu lady from India. It's great. It's everything about it was perfect, and they're doing these dances. And this is where I am with AUs and classic literature movies. It's like, I mean, is it fanfic or is it not?
Yeah.
I think that leads well into my next point, which is that there are some stories that I feel like are just human stories. There's something that sort of across time we can identify with and we want to keep retelling. But a lot of the details, culture changes based on different cultures that you're in and even just time passing. So stuff doesn't really resonate if you keep it exactly the same. Like I remember when I read Pride and Prejudice, there is a scene where she is like talking mad shit about another woman.
Oh.
Or maybe it was, what's the other one? Not Pride and Prejudice.
Oh.
Sense and Sensibility. It was Sense
and Sensibility. Are you sure it could be Emma? Emma's the one who's talking mad shit about a woman.
No, because that's built into like Emma's character. This was just like an aside at like a party during Sense and Sensibility where she was talking about how like low class and lame this other girl was. But it wasn't like in Emma where you're supposed to know it's kind of bad that she's doing it and she needs to overcome it. This was just sort of like, well, yeah, what do you expect of somebody like that? And I remember it was like so jarring to me in the moment.
Yikes.
And I totally understand why subsequent versions, like movie versions, took that scene out because it makes who's the oldest sister? Eleanor? Yeah, it makes Eleanor just seem kind of mean. The authors in this article then go on to say, as we all well know, fan fiction leans heavily female, queer, and non-white. So it is pretty clear to see why the source material is often reworked. Looking again at 10 Things I Hate About You, the source material was misogynistic as fuck. It advocates domestic abuse at one point. It's basically like, yeah, I can get my wife under control if I got to slap her around a little bit. Then that's just that. You know, because it was, what, late 1500s, early 1600s?
That was, a rod no thicker than my thumb territory.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was when Punch and Judy was still a thing that people enjoyed. So is the revising of these stories, like removing certain context from the source material and reworking it for a modern audience, do we really have to consider that, quote, dumbing it down? Or is it just making the text more relatable and more accessible to the reader? Is that a bad thing? And in any way, does it damage the source material?
Yeah. Like, I don't know. Who says that it's, dumbing it down? That just sounds like elitist as fuck, you know?
Well, yeah, I'm talking about like in academia.
No, that's what I mean. I don't think you're the one. First off, I'm not calling you elitist as fuck. Like, we would be friends if you were. No, I mean,
I just told you that I like to repo the genetic offer.
I was gonna say, we just had a conversation where I talked about seeing like Phantom of the Opera 4 times. Like, let's talk about who's the true elite here.
So another quote about how to interpret what you read. Author Anne Berthoff says, quote, "When we read critically, we are reading for meaning, and that is not the same thing as reading for message. Meanings are not things, and finding them is not like going on an Easter egg hunt. Meanings are relationships. They are unstable, shifting, dynamic. They do not stay still, nor can we prove the authenticity or the validity of one or another meaning that we find," end quote. So I would also say to look at long running media and ask yourself what makes something canon and what makes something fanon. For example, Doctor Who. Or let's say X-Men, because I know more about X-Men. X-Men is a comic that started in 1963, and currently there are 20-ish titles that are running. As I was checking to see how many current X-Men titles there were, I saw that Uncanny X-Men, which is one of the titles that I read regularly about 20 years ago, is currently on issue 700.
Whoa.
None of the original authors are writing these stories anymore. As you can imagine, a lot of them are probably dead. And as I mentioned before, new writers undo the work of older writers as social norms and interests change. My best example of this, and you have both heard me rant about this multiple
at least
times.
Recently.
5 times in the recent memory.
Like the other day.
Yeah, literally the other day. Rob Liefeld was the creator of a character named Shatterstar that appeared in the X Factor comics and eventually had a best friend named Richter, who was a mutant. They were extremely gay for each other. I don't know how else to describe this. We all knew it. Like, they weren't written that way, but we all knew it. It was just wildly homoerotic. They just seemed absolutely perfect for each other. But this was in the early to mid 90s that this was happening. So then around 2007, Shatterstar was written as pansexual, which makes a lot of sense for his character because he is an alien and who never really experienced what human sexuality was like until he came to Earth. And in 2009, him and Richter were finally written as explicitly romantic. There was a kiss and everything.
Whoa.
Rob Liefeld was so angry about this, so unbelievably angry about this. I remember watching live his ranting comments about this. He literally said, this is a quote, "Shatterstar is akin to Maximus in Gladiator. He is a warrior, a Spartan, and not a gay one," end quote. Which, if you're going to invoke like Spartans and gladiators, maybe don't do it to say that they don't have sex with men.
So, yeah, okay. This is where I really find this quote interesting in terms of our conversation into AUs, because we're talking about what is fanon, what is canon. Does canon diminish your excitement or your enjoyment of something? You can really do the same thing with history. Because what he's saying about Gladiator as a movie and the comic 300 and also as the movie, these are basically RPFs, right? They're real person fiction.
Yeah.
And fanfic parlance. But Maximus wasn't a real person, but like Commodus and Marcus Aurelius were, Leonidas the First was, the Battle of Thermopylae was real, Xerxes was real. These are real things and real events. They happened in a very specific way, though, in history, and the way that these characters interacted with each other in history was a certain way. And these movies successfully repackaged the ancient world with our modern sensibilities, including our modern sexuality. But it's interesting to me that he knows.
Not to interrupt you, but there was a part in 300 that I remember very distinctly where what's his name, the head of the Spartans, accuses Athenians of being quote unquote boy lovers, and I was like, whoa, glass
I know,
houses.
right? So yeah. I mean, exactly. Even in the movie 300, they're saying like the Spartans can't be this way. I'm like, okay, well, wait. But like, it's interesting to me that he knows deep down that the ancient world, especially ancient Greece, is not like ours in terms of sexual experience, or much else. Like, these are uber patriarchies we're talking about that make ours look quaint. But not a gay Spartan is an absolutely hilarious thing to say, and such an AU version of reality. Like, layers and layers of alternate universe ideas placed on history. And I'm getting super meta, but it's like our ideas of history are in themselves AUs, and that's my weird classics discussion, and I'll stop now.
Yeah. No, I think this is actually a really good example of how Mara and I both have degrees that sort of revolve around history. Is that I have spent a lot of time arguing with people online that you can't call people historically quote unquote gay if they didn't personally identify as that. Like, there were gay people throughout history, don't get me wrong. By our modern definition of what that is, they would be considered gay, but they didn't consider themselves that. And I think this is key to understanding history, is how people thought of themselves and within their culture. And I think it's a really complicated
It's extremely complicated. Like, heterosexuality and homosexuality were not words up until recently. That's just not how people viewed themselves in the ancient world, or even like the Middle Ages, or any of these things. It just didn't happen. So it's interesting. Just that quote is just fascinating to me, because he knows deep down, but he can't allow himself to get there.
It's that he can't reconcile the concept of being hyper masculine and being gay, which would not have been a problem in certain points in the past to be hyper masculine.
And it's interesting, though, because of these uber patriarchies. These were uber patriarchies. They cloistered their women in a lot of cases. Didn't have women to have sex with. They were in homes by themselves, weaving.
Exactly. Like, the reason we don't talk about like Greek and Roman women a lot is because we don't know shit about them, because
the only writings that exist are from elite men who had no interest in what women were up to.
Well, there was also like historians of old were all men, and like same with archaeologists. That's not that word, but whatever. Yeah, close. Thanks. It's like almost the morning. Anyways, but so there was like this really, I don't have a history background, obviously, if you can't tell. That's why I'm just sitting and laughing during all of this. But there was an article recently about some archaeologists. Someone say that word so I know how to say it.
Archaeologist.
I'm adding an extra O somewhere.
I'm tainted now.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't know what they found, but they like discovered something, and they were like, oh, I wonder what they use this for. They must have used it to like count money or like do this or whatever. And then some woman came up and she was like, no, it's like for weaving fabric. Like, that's like not anything crazy. It's literally like to help you knit faster. And everyone was like, oh.
So that's a big thing I think about a lot, is how you really cannot think about anything in the past in terms of today, because things are so incredibly different. So that's why I think AUs are a good thing. All right, so now to talk more about AUs. There are different types, obviously, and they can be layered on top of each other in within the same work.
She says obviously as if I even realized that there were like different types of AU. I thought they were just all cafes.
So these could be broadly classified in several ways. You have ACs, which are alternative characterizations. This was the hardest one for me to wrap my head around. I feel like some of the mob boss kind of fan fiction you see is like this.
Yeah.
I did read a story once where one of the characters had a traumatic brain injury and was like wildly a different person. Personally, I don't understand why you would read a fan fiction if the character wasn't the character that you liked.
I don't know. I feel like it
I don't know. What do you think?
I feel like this comes into play when this is layered on top of something else, like Dark Draco or Draco Malfoy. Like, you know, he's like kind of a wimp in the end because he's like a coward in the last few books, and people don't like love that because that's not alpha, that's like beta behavior or sigma or whatever, as the kids say now. Skibbity, let's just throw those in there.
Okay.
It's like Draco is too skibbity.
But like in these like alternate characterizations, he's like cool guy, sex god, like he does it all. And then he usually in these ones it like becomes like head Death Eater and is like controlling everyone in the background and like, you know, is secretly good somehow. But yeah, I don't know, they're all, I feel like they have to be secretly, like he has to be secretly good on top of this because, you know, I read Dramione and like I don't know, how can you just be like in love with your master kind of stuff. But anyways,
things get dark fast.
Yeah, I think that's an aspect I didn't consider. Is I've definitely seen stories of like dark insert character here.
Yeah.
Or they change some sort of aspect of the character. Like I was thinking of like head boy Draco and head girl Hermione, and like they have that thing going on. It's like an academic rivals romance.
Yeah.
And you just change like one facet of the story, and it changes like a characteristic problem.
So it's like I went down this rabbit hole now that you say that, because there's one sentence in like book 2 about Draco being like maybe smart or something, and so everyone like not, I don't think he's like canonically in any of it, but like in fanon there is like this, well at least in the Dramione fan like area, there is lots of times like, you know, Hermione's head like top of the class and Draco's always like second, so there's always like some sort of like academic rivalry going on, or he's like at least top 5. So
not to overanalyze Harry Potter because fuck J.K. Rowling.
Yeah,
but one of the things I really was disappointed in the last couple of books was I felt like she was going to have kind of a turnaround for the Slytherins, in the sense of like some of them would obviously go on to work with the Death Eaters.
Yeah.
But I feel like because the book was for kids, I thought she would do a like, sometimes people are complicated. And sometimes just because somebody seems kind of like a jerk doesn't mean that they're evil, you know, that they would go ahead and side with the good side because they're, you know, like I said, people are complicated.
Yeah.
But then that didn't happen. They all just sucked.
Yeah, I don't like that either. I don't like the black and white dynamic there between like Gryffindors and Slytherins, and I'm just like, that's just not how humans work. Like even if we must sort people into camps of personality, it's like people aren't all bad. Like why are we doing this to ourselves?
It's like very interesting. Like one thing I love about fan fiction is like taking that little strain that they were like, I'm unhappy with this, and really going deeper. Right. And that's truly like one of them, where like the Slytherins are all bad. There's a lot of like found family, like Slytherin fics, and like a lot of like Draco redemption. I think because everyone was expecting that to happen. And actually like there's a line somewhere in one of her like really, not like old, but like right after she finished all this series, she was talking about like, you know, I was really like waffling over whether having whether Draco should like be redeemed and then maybe end up with like Hermione, like, you know, that would be cute, instead of Ron. And she was like, but then I decided against it, you know, because whatever, fuck Draco, or whatever bullshit she comes up with. So everyone was like, what?
Yeah, especially because in the first book, when Harry's getting sorted, when he's like, oh God, please don't put me in Slytherin. And the Hat's like, well, you would have done good there. Yeah. I mean, again, that just goes to show people are complicated. But no, she completely abandoned that by the end.
Yeah. Well, she writes.
That's when she was starting to lose her mind.
Yeah, she writes off later. Not that this has now become like a Harry Potter analysis, but she writes off later that he only got that because he was a Horcrux for Voldemort. So like the Sorting Hat was.
Well, I knew that was a factor, but I never assumed that was the only reason. I assumed it was because of his intense desire to prove himself as being worthy of being there.
No,
but also, I guess I'm overanalyzing.
I think like leadership qualities, right? Like I think Slytherin would be great at leadership.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta play that politics game. And you have to be ambitious, and that's like literally one of the words for Slytherin. God. J.K. Rowling just really killed that.
She did. She killed a lot of stuff.
Yeah, like I said, she really
like
lost
our
her mind.
respect.
Yeah, she did.
She had such a good thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So the next one is AL, Alternative Life, and this is the beloved coffee shop AU. Basically, just the characters are the same in this one, right?
Basically,
like maybe the general themes can be the same, but I would say it's really more character driven than anything
I
else.
think of it like you take the characters, you lift them out of the setting and the life that they're living, and you throw them into another setting, another life, and you give them a different backgrounds a little bit, but they still kind of have the same issues.
Yeah, I think it's same, very character driven. So like I think of a lot of the Reylo world, like there's a lot of boss / employee, you know, because you got to get that power imbalance in there somehow, like taboo tension. So like Love Hypothesis I think would fit in there because it's same thing.
Yeah.
They're just in a different realm.
Right. I think it's really, this is a fun one because you can take those characters, those beloved characters, out of like their crazy intense world, like Star Wars or Marvel or whatever, like where they're living these insane, unrelatable lives. And you just take that one little character and you're like, I'm going to make you a barista at a coffee shop. Or like, you're going to be a grad student in chemistry and fall in love with your like brilliant PhD candidate, like partner. It's going to be great. And just going to have like a nice little relatable life.
Mar, I don't think I was gonna say I don't think you've been privy to this, but there is currently in the Marvel comic universe, I believe, they are making Bucky Barnes a congressman.
Oh, are you talking about the TikTok I sent you?
Yeah,
that's they're doing it for
like
one of the movies.
Yeah, like everybody is horrified by it. And on the video, my favorite comment was somebody who said, I'm sorry, Bucky, that they don't understand you like we do. And that's exactly how I feel.
I know. I was telling you I didn't watch it, but in the What If series, which is like an animated Marvel TV show, like short, they make Bucky Barnes a senator in it, and he gets like attacked in the new Captain America, which is actually Captain Britain or something, and it's Peggy. She has to like help him or something. I don't know. Whoever thought, like, as I said when I was telling Tabitha about this. Number one, the American population would never be chill with the war crimes that Bucky committed when he was Winter Soldier. Like, and also like we are so anti-communist that anyone who has like a sprinkling of Russian on them would be they would be not elected to anything, not even like the school board.
I just feel like Bucky Barnes should finally get his military pension.
Yeah.
And be able to just do whatever he wanted and relax on a farm somewhere.
That's
yeah. Oh yeah, he'd be great as a farmer. I
That's
think.
like my favorite trope in the Marvel Universe fiction or fan fiction is when Steve Rogers like wakes up and he's like, "But I'm poor," and then someone comes in and they're like, "Sir, here's your military pension and also your pay from like the last 70 years because technically you were in service when you were on ice," and he's like a millionaire.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Bucky should be considered the same way since he was essentially a
prisoner of war. Yeah.
He is. Yeah. I mean, you know that payment would get like locked up in Senate, like talks and hearings and all sorts of stuff. But like I mean, that's reality and we don't like that.
Next is AS, alternative setting. The characterizations and major plot points are the same, but it takes place in a vastly different location. I was trying to think of an example of this, and all I could think of was, well, that I've read Patroclus Achilles fan fiction that is set in a modern day war, which I feel like is the nerdiest kind you could read.
That is. Again, I would rather them be in a coffee shop.
Yeah, like a little fluff. I know. So
yeah,
would 50 Shades of Grey be an alternate setting or an alternate life? Because it's like the same story with the same beats, but like the original Edward wasn't into dom and sub, but like who knows after he lost his virginity? Yeah, like didn't they break the bed in the last book? Like maybe he is.
I think this is a good example of how I said they can layer on top of each other the different types of AU settings.
Yeah, that's a layer because it's both. Like it's both like setting and
you could
life.
say,
I mean, I've been to Forks. I don't know if either of you
have you been to Forks?
Yeah,
oh my god,
I've been to Forks. It's foggy. It's the middle of nowhere.
Did you go to the Twilight House?
I did not go to the Twilight House. We were just driving through it. I did go to the beach though.
And did you say, Bella, where the hell have you been?
And I
Loca?
did see like there are no sky rises or anything like that. It's like It's its thing. And I did see people selling cords of wood, and the cords of wood were labeled Bella's cords of wood, and I was like, that's perfect. Everything about this is stunning. I love this.
I would honestly
That's
love
so
to live in a
fucking
place that
funny.
foggy. I hate the sun.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I know it gives life and everything, but it's not for me. The next one is AT, or alternative timeline. This would be like the Star Trek reboot movies where there's a very clear, which is to say on screen, timeline split. Also, Harry Potter stories wherein Voldemort wins. It's the same universe, the same characters, the same histories, but at some point, the author of the fanned work changes a major plot point. You also see this called canon divergence a lot. I used to read a lot of Firefly fan fiction that basically just continued where the series stopped, and Wash lives somehow. Don't ask questions.
Long live Firefly. Wash lives fan fiction. But don't get me started on that Jane River nonsense. That was crazy.
There was a lot of that, like an alarming amount of that.
God, so much. Yeah, I heard that like the rationale was that like Jane loves weapons and River is a weapon. And I'm like, okay, yeah, if River weren't like off her nut and also like a teen.
Exactly. Like I get the theory because they were always at odds with each other. You know, she did like slash him.
True.
But again, yeah, she's mentally ill and she's a teenager.
All wrong.
I did not watch that show.
Oh, you should. It's so good. It's only
Well,
13
it doesn't
episodes.
end.
You'll be done
No,
in like 2 days.
it needs to have an end, but I heard it got cut, so
just watch the movie. And
there's a
finished.
movie?
Wash was like,
yeah, there's a movie.
Wash was like everybody's favorite character. He was wonderful and he died in the movie. So everybody's just like, no, he didn't.
Yeah, just
we closed our
pretend that
eyes when it
didn't happen.
happened. Yeah. I don't think we had the Sci-Fi Channel growing up, so that was it.
Next is AR, which is alternative reality. This would be like the Mirrorverse or the Mirror Universe, which is so named after the Star Trek episode Mirror Mirror, wherein Kirk is transported to an alternate world where the Federation never existed, but rather the Terran Empire, a bloodthirsty space conquerors, and everyone is so comically evil. Even if you've never seen this episode, you might be familiar with the gag of an evil version of a person wearing a mustache or a goatee. That's from this episode of Star Trek.
Oh, that's interesting. So would Omegaverse be alternate reality? Or I mean, it's one, maybe its own unique one because it's like multiple things kind of piled on.
I think so, because it's a factor.
I think it's definitely part.
Yeah, it's a factor outside of the individual's control. Like, it's not something they chose to do. It's something that's different about the entire world.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually watching Star Trek Discovery right now, and I just got to an episode where they go to the Mirror Universe, and I was like, oh, cool, we're still doing this.
Why not?
Okay, so there are some very popular subgroups to AU that like belong to these different categories, things that you'll see kind of over and over. The first is the character type / alternative life. Maybe they're all elves, or maybe they're all humans. Maybe they have magic, or maybe they don't have magic. Maybe they're teachers, maybe they're pirates, maybe they're sex workers, or mermaids, or vampires, etc., etc. You take what they are in canon and you change that up.
I thought you were just going to keep listing different like types of people. Maybe they're zombies, maybe they're architects, maybe they're teachers.
Yeah. I just wanted to pull out all the ones I like.
No, I know. It was just... It would have been funny if you just kept going. I feel like Omegaverse maybe fits in here. I know I literally just asked about it before, but because like they're not. I mean, in most, I wouldn't say most of Omegaverse, but a lot that I've read, they're not like werewolves at all. Like they don't change into werewolves. They just have like those special dog-like abilities, if you will.
One of the best pieces of work I have ever read about werewolves and like how werewolves would actually function within our human society, like as a subgroup, was a piece of Sherlock fan fiction. This author did a great job.
Okay. I love it. Should I read it for our Omegaverse trope episode?
Well, there's no Omegaverse stuff. They're just werewolves.
Oh, so no nodding or anything?
No, actually, no nodding. I think this was before nodding became a thing. This was back when Sherlock was still on TV.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Pre-Omegaverse.
Yeah, if they wrote it now.
Yeah, for sure.
The next popular AU is period. So, like, medieval European is very popular, as is Regency and Victorian. Personally, I love a good historic American Western.
I don't know why that feels so odd for me, hearing you say that. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. I've talked to Mara about this. I love the aesthetic of the West.
Oh, okay.
Like
Dust
just
Bowl.
the like homesteading and the lonesome prairies and that kind of thing. My issue is that so much of the media around it is so hyper masculine that I can't enjoy it. Like, I remember watching McClintock as a kid. It would be on the TV when I was at my grandparents' house. I so viscerally remember the scene where he just full on punches a woman in the face, and that's like what most Westerns are. So it's really hard to find one that has like a good aesthetic. Like, I watched The Power of the Dog a couple years ago, and I was like, yes, more homoeroticism.
Lone Women also was a really good book that was Western.
Yes.
And centered around a Black woman, which was just, it was so well done.
Yes.
Damn. I'm not into American Western, but I do love Regency as a Pride and Prejudice girl, except most of the fan fiction that like have Regency, that are the pairings that I like, are like Draco and Hermione / Reylo. So usually the Regency era type fic or medieval fic ends up being like the man is like a lord or like a king, and then the woman is like a slave or a servant, or I'm like,
gross.
I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah. There's like one that's really popular, I think, in the Reylo world that's kind of like that. I don't think she's a slave. I think she's just a servant of the house. And I'm like, ugh, it feels a little too taboo for me, if you will. So maybe I'll eventually read it.
I remember a couple years ago, I saw somebody online saying that we need to stop making Regency romances that the field was played out, and I was like, you shut your goddamn mouth.
Yeah, you shut up, or
they're
absolutely
great.
Not. You can add magic. You can do all sorts of stuff. Put werewolves in there, vampires.
I want it all.
Could do Regency all day.
True, me too.
If I see a new gay Regency romance novel that came out, it is an instant read for me.
Of course, everyone loves Regency.
Yeah,
people and their bad opinions.
Truly,
yeah. So next is setting specific AUs. This is where you get coffee shops, rock band, college, prison, space, soulmates, etc. I guess soulmates could also be, I don't know, I think you could classify that differently. This is usually where my favorite stories are, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, like one of my very favorite rock band AUs was a Vampire Diaries fic. And this was also like an alt-life thing where like everybody's just like, they're musicians. And so the premise was that Caroline and Klaus are feuding musicians who go on tour together. And like whenever I think about Julie Plec ruining the ending of that franchise, I think about that fic and I just feel better inside.
I need you to send that to me. I want to read that.
Will.
Yeah, please.
It's so good.
Please. I will say, I think you and I read different length fics, so like,
yeah, you like really long ones.
I do.
I usually set my cutoff. So I say what I tell AO3 is I want stories that are more than 5,000 words but less than 50,000.
That's a really good way to go.
I like only read fics that are like over 100,000.
Now I feel like they lose their thread halfway through when they're 100,000.
I like them long.
I often find like I can't handle it when they get that long because like they throw in so much filler that like I get bored and then I have to like cut it off and then I feel bad because the premise was cool.
Yeah, the one I'm reading right now is like 200,000 words.
You should totally count those as read
me.
books,
I do. I try.
Definitely need to.
The only thing that's hard is who like I don't know how these people like. I only do it on book shit. What is it called? I'm so bad at
Storygraph.
Yeah, thank you. I only do it on Storygraph because they like don't publish them out to the world, you know.
They don't attach a government name to the fan fiction that you read.
No, but they like they're like more because some fanfic authors don't want their stuff on Goodreads or on anything else because like it feels weird legally or they just don't want it, whatever. So like Storygraph is different. They like do different things about it. So I feel a little better like counting them in there without knowing what the author wants or not. So, but because they're all like user added, the page lengths are like insane. This one that I'm doing called Bloody, Slutty, and Pathetic, it's great. It's 196,000 words, and what did I say? 196,000. Yeah. That's how long it is. Oh, it's almost 200,000 words. But some of the page numbers are like 450, and some of them are like 780, and I'm like, which is the right one? So I just guess.
Yeah, you could totally count that as having read a novel.
Yeah, no, I do. I count them in, but a storygraph only. So, anyways, I digress again.
So the last one that's kind of a really popular subgroup, I would say, is fusion AUs. So this is when you take one world and put characters from a completely different work of fiction in that world. So like if Feyre and her sisters went to Hogwarts, or if the Avengers were competing in the Hunger Games. This really is not my genre. This is not something I read at all. So does anyone else want to speak to the appeal?
No.
I have nothing to say about this other than I don't like it. I'm not a crossover person, mainly because I'm an old Dark Angel fan. And when I saw Supernatural start popping up in like the tags, I was like out. I was like, I don't need this weird twincest in my my drama about post-apocalyptic dystopian super soldiers. Okay, like I have limits.
Yeah, not to yuck anyone's yum out there, but I'm not into it at all. Like I make sure I go through and exclude any crossover fics when in my like AO3 search, because I tried to read one once. I don't remember what it was, but it was of course like they ended up in Hogwarts, and it just like was so hard to like get into the story because my brain was like, these people are never supposed to like exist in the same worlds. They're supposed to be separate, and now we're pushing them all together. I don't know. It was so dissonant for me. Like, you know.
Yeah, AO3 should really have a button that just says like control for Hogwarts. So that way you could keep it out of any story that you want to read.
Like, I don't need this. Stop it.
You could, I think there's a Hogwarts specific crossover tag that you could exclude if you know it, but there is that exclude crossovers button at the end.
Right.
That I always use.
I'm always reluctant to use that because as somebody who likes like Marvel properties, there's so many different universes that exist within that. There's the comics and the movies and stuff like that I never want to say, because I never know how the authors have tagged their stuff. Like, is it a crossover if you have like a character from the movies with a character from the comic books? Because it's all kind of the same, but also not. Again, just shows how it's very, very complicated.
Yeah, that's true. I was gonna look up because I was like, I think there's one for it, because when I read all the Steve Bucky stuff like a while back, not Steve/Bucky, it was always like Steve with a woman. Bucky with a woman.
I was gonna say you.
No. Reader insert Emma. No, I don't like reader inserts. They're bizarre. Because then I have to like think while I'm reading
I can't do reader inserts.
Because anytime it's like Y/N, I'm like yin. I know it's supposed to be my name, but I can't keep doing that work, you know? But no, the movies have the MCU is their main tag, like the Marvel Cinematic. You can do the sub movies, but yeah, not for comics versus movies. Yeah.
Once you go down to the fandom tabs, there's like multiple ways, especially if you get into the Marvel stuff. And there's one option that's just like all Marvel types or something like that.
Oh, Marvel. Yeah.
Or you can like just the movies, just the comics, just the specific part of the comics, just like the 616 universe, yada yada. It gets complicated. Okay, so finally, let us talk about when fan fiction gets published traditionally as an original work. Usually it involves the author having a large fan base online already, and they are made to change anything identifying that could get them sued, like names, locations, etc., that ties it to the source work. Some notable examples of this would be The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, which was a fan fiction called Head Over Feet.
Kylo Ren fandom AUs are all over the publishing world right now. There is actually like a tag on Goodreads for them, so you can like follow each one.
Yeah, for Reylo.
But not only Ali Hazelwood, like it's Julie Soto, whoever wrote the Hurricane Wars, Lana Ferguson, the fake meat lady, who was kicked out of fandom, by the way,
Why did she get kicked out?
She was apparently racist. I don't know the details on
Yikes.
that. But there are a ton.
Yeah.
And I also read Head Over Feet, and The Love Hypothesis was far better.
Yeah, I did not end up reading Head Over Feet. I got lazy, but was Fake Meat confirmed to be Reylo? Because I know I joked about it when I was reading it, because I was like, I feel like I've read this fan fiction before. Like I've read one that is Kylo Ren and Rey like as doctors, and they're also both like Rey's like a secret Omega, but and Kylo's Alpha, Avi. But I was like, it's too different, because I went back and reread it right after I read Fake Meat, but they didn't seem that similar. Like it was like a lot of things were changed. So
yeah, no, the Fake Meat I don't think started out as a fanfic, but her other book, her first book, The Nanny, definitely was a fanfic.
Okay.
The reason I was thinking the Fake Mate is because that's when I read, first of all, and second, it just really seemed like it would be a Reylo fanfic.
Like he's so like Adam Driver / like Kylo Ren coded.
Yeah,
but
like even the cover. Look at the cover.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, like
she
Adam
as a
Driver.
character doesn't totally strike me as like a Rey, just because like the background markers that are usually in like AU Reylo fics of her being like orphan and like not coming from money, that sort of stuff. Like that ties into her like scavenger background from Star Wars. Those parts are missing from my memory. Like, but I couldn't be wrong here. So. Interesting that she got kicked out of the fandom, though.
Yeah, I can't remember her handle. I would have to look it back up again.
Damn.
But like, there was a big brouhaha on Twitter a few months back, and they're like, "We don't know her. We made her leave.
We hate her."
They tracked her down. They're like, "Yeah, Lana Ferguson is one of us, but not really, not anymore.
We don't claim her."
Right.
So also we have very well known 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James, which was a piece of fan fiction called Masters of the Universe, which personally I think is a crazy name, because I think of that cartoon from like the 80s.
Yeah, I had no idea that was the name.
Okay. We have Pucked by Helena Hunting, which was originally called The Misapprehension of Bella Swan.
I did not know that was a Twilight fan fiction.
I did not until I was researching this episode.
I'm so confused, but okay.
Then we have After by Anna Todd, which is known by the same title. And this was a Harry Styles real person fan fiction, which there's like an alarming amount of Harry Styles fan fiction being turned into original publishing right now.
That Anne Hathaway book or movie.
Yeah, right?
Is that, I don't remember what, what is it called? I have to look it up. But that's also Harry Styles fan fiction originally.
I feel like this Harry Styles thing really missed me. Like, I did not realize people considered him attractive
the
until
idea of you. He
like,
just
One
is like
Direction
a
and everything completely
rat
missed
boy.
me. I was like, what is this? Like, why are these tweens going places?
I was like, I think like 1 or 2 years older than most of the people, but once they started becoming like more mainstream, people in my group were like age group were very into it, but I'm not me.
And then I would say that technically the Mortal Instrument series by Cassandra Clare isn't Harry Potter fan fiction, but having read some of her fan fiction back in the day, the characters are like exactly the same. They're like 1 in 1.
Yeah, she's been accused multiple times of, all of that.
Yeah.
So it
over and over and over again.
It's not Harry Potter fan fiction.
It's not, but it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That clears it up.
It's a weird it's a weird line that she's straddling,
Yeah.
and she's been accused of plagiarism often.
Oh.
Because of it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want us to read the first Mortal Instruments book, so I'll get more into it
Okay,
then.
okay.
But her fan fiction was like it was done before the Harry Potter series finished, so it was sort of an imagining of what the finishing was like.
Oh, okay.
And but it was still set very firmly within the Harry Potter universe. And when I tried to read that first book of hers when it came out, I could not get over how much the main character, was his name Jace, was Draco from her series. Like there was no difference between those two characters. This 100% was her leather pants Draco.
Yes. People would say that he was Draco with leather pants.
Yeah. And the thing is, she was accused with her fan fiction of plagiarizing from other sources, allegedly.
She would like strip people's dialogue from other sources and use it as her own, and then say it's an homage.
I don't think that's how that works.
So the fact that she like wrote fan fiction that was accused of plagiarism and then used that fan fiction to write an original work is, I think, what makes it, as the kids say, sus.
Yeah.
Quite.
The kids who said sus are now adults.
It's just like, how old are millennials now? I'm like, oh no, they're 40.
I know.
Yeah.
Who was I talking to the other day? But someone was like, yeah, there was this young boomer. I think they were like 50. And I was like, I don't think that's a boomer anymore. I think that person's Gen X. And they were like, but they were boomer like. And I was like, yeah, I think that's fine. Like we use that as like kind of like a Karen thing now. But they were like, yeah, they were a boomer. I'm like, again, I don't know why I'm like fighting you on this in my head. But I was like, you just finished your story. So
it's like there's boomers on the inside and boomers on the outside.
Yeah.
I was the exact right age for the heyday of NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys.
Yeah.
And so friends my age were all now currently watching the midlife crisis of Justin Timberlake with an alarming amount of glee.
Yeah, I am too. Fuck him.
Is it alarming though?
No.
I mean, I kind of feel like it might be good.
I mean, I think it's karma. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote like a weird wrap up somehow. Like I was just kind of putting my
it's
thoughts.
Okay, because I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, wrap it up,
okay.
Emma.
Okay. So, see, my family uses that, but mostly in a like "shut the fuck up" type thing.
No,
so.
This is a good way. This is celebrating your wrap up.
Yeah, I'm saying it's a good way because I couldn't get my shit together enough to do it.
No, it's okay. I'm just being self-deprecating. So all this and our other fan fiction minisode proves to me is that the average population has no idea how influential fan fiction is on the media that they consume, and also how much fan fiction has tainted my brain. So now when I consume media, I think like, what if these people kissed, or like, what if they actually did this instead? And you know, I'm thankful for it because someone out there has had the same thought as me, but they actually wrote it down. So now I can get to like kick my feet when I read it, when I'm done watching something or reading something. So
yeah, I think it is actually a really special like human switch where you're watching something, you're like, what if this happened?
Yeah.
And it's not all of us who think that. Like I actually had a conversation with my sister recently, and I was just like trying to explain to her how fan fiction works, and I was like, have you ever watched something and thought, what if this happened instead of that thing that happened in the actual canon thing? And she's like, no, never. And I was like, no, never. What?
Wow, what is it like being boring? Like
I know. I was like, what is it like to be in your head? Is it boring all the time?
God.
No shade to my sister.
No,
She's very
none.
sweet.
I also think it's true that sometimes people, be they just characters in book or real people, can have really good chemistry. And it doesn't have to do with like sexuality or anything like that. It's just that they work really well together for reasons that are really hard to define.
Yeah.
I know personally one of the fan fiction pairings I read, it was because the first time these two characters appeared on screen together, I felt like my stomach twist. Like just the two of them interacting with each other.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. And yeah, like I knew nothing was ever going to happen between those characters, but they just had such good chemistry interacting with each other that I wanted to pursue that on my own.
Yeah.
I also think that to Emma's point that how prolific fan fiction is,
it's everywhere.
the fact that it's considered other, and like this like almost deviant thing is really unnecessary, and probably just the fact that it's so popularized by like women and minorities. because there are just so many other ways to consider mainstream things to be fan fiction, but we don't because we want to consider those more legitimate for some reason.
Also, they're mostly produced by men.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say
Well,
it all leads back to the patriarchy.
Everything comes right back down to capitalism and patriarchy.
Yeah,
exactly. Our thesis is capitalism and patriarchy will fuck you up every time.
Every single time.
Thank you for joining us here today, and we hope you return next time.
To listen.
Bye.
Bye.